Hello everyone, my name is Jamie Wisher and this is my management plan project for Bio 122 Intro to Conservation Biology with Mrs. Foes. If you couldn't tell by the picture today, I'll be telling you about the background of the endangered monarch butterfly. The problem is that their numbers have dramatically decreased, and I'll cover the problems that they are facing, threats happening to their ecosystem, current management plans helping the conservation of the monarchs, and my own proposed management plan for this beautiful species. First, we'll start with their background. So their common species name, of course, is the monarch butterfly. Their scientific name is Danis plexippus. And brief description here, they are one of the largest butterfly species. The adult monarchs have 2 wings for flight with an average 3 to 4 inch wingspan. This insect has 4 stages of life and commonly known for the metamorphosis that they undergo, which shows that right here. They are known for their bright orange colors and black outlines with a stained glass-like design. In their caterpillar stage, they can be identified by their stripes of yellow, black, and white bands. And they also feed on nectar and flowers, milkweeds, eucalyptus. We'll cover that further in some other slides here. Now, like many of you know, of course, like many birds, monarchs also migrate south for the winter and north for the summer, which kind of shows their flight patterns on this picture here. Now, during the spring and summer, the monarchs can be found in fields with milkweed and flowers, kind of like I've already discussed. In the winter months, they can be found on the southern coast of California, areas of Florida, and the high altitudes of Mexico. Now, for a butterfly, they have a huge range. They can be found as far south as the Caribbean, some parts of South America in the winter, and in the summer they are found as far north as Canada, but most commonly east of the Rocky Mountains. Now, monarchs' life cycle, they have an average lifespan of 2 to 8 weeks, which is very short, especially for the migration that they have to undergo. Approximately, eggs can take 2 to 10 days till they hatch into a caterpillar. From caterpillar to the cocoon, another 6 to 12 days. Once the adult monarch emerges, they only live for another couple weeks. So breeding monarch adults first mate a few days after the metamorphosis, so first couple days into the adult life. And females only lay their eggs on the milkweed plant because of the toxicity that they create towards predators. And like I said, since that lifespan isn't that long, it takes multiple generations for monarchs to complete that quest, which is pretty crazy if you think about. It typically takes about 2 months for them to complete that migration. Now we'll look into the threats of the monarchs. Monarch butterflies have dropped a staggering 90% in a documented 20-year average population that overwinters in Mexico. So this graph here shows the monarch population in millions. 1997 we have as high as 682 million monarchs, all the way down to the lowest amount that we've seen in history in 2014, only at 25 million. And I'll dig further or go further into why that is happening and the different kind of threats that they're facing. So biggest, of course, is habitat loss due to agriculture expansions, loss of their milkweed plant, deforestation in the overwintering are all threats of habitat loss to the monarch butterflies. This is a picture here of the milkweed plant that they favor, and if the monarchs do not have their milkweed to lay their eggs on or to eat, then inevitably they will die. And this picture on the right here is a picture of a oamil tree. The monarchs favor these trees in the overwintering in Mexico, but these trees are now endangered just like the monarchs. If the monarchs don't have anywhere to rest after that long migration, then they will be vulnerable and die out as well. And this picture just shows the vegetation of Mexico. So if you can see here, the oamil forest is outlined in black, which is these little areas right here. So they don't have too much space to even go to when they travel down to Mexico. Okay. Another threat would be climate change. Monarchs are heavily reliant on temperature conditions, and if the weather is too hot, it could decrease their numbers significantly, because increased temperatures means they migrate further north. If they're going further north, that means that the migration south will take longer, which means that they're getting caught in areas, down here in northern Georgia, Alabama, which can be devastating. The climate change increases the amount of moisture in the air, and monarchs' wings are like silk. So one chilly, damp night could kill a whole generation, and that is a huge deal. As we've learned, it takes multiple generations to complete the migration. If that one cold night kills off that many, that can be very significant. So another threat here, pretty straightforward, is the herbicides and insecticides. GMOs, herbicides, insecticides, they are all readily available to agriculture now. So they're spraying and they're killing the weeds. Obviously, they can't lay on the milkweed if they're dead. Once they do find a milkweed and they lay their eggs and the larva hatches, then they're spraying the insecticide, which kills, the caterpillar version. So definitely a huge threat. Now the social and political factors, the price of corn and soybean keeps skyrocketing in the United States, which causes more land to be turned into harvesting fields for economic growth, and this turns the open fields with flowers and milkweed to be destroyed. In 2014, it was all the way up to about $7.50 a bushel. So you can definitely see why more farms are expanding in the United States. Of course, predators, even though I said, the milkweed kind of has that toxicity, it can only go so far. And especially since the monarch has so many stages of life, that makes them even more vulnerable, because they can be, vulnerable to predators at each stage of their life. Here you see that's an assassin bug attacking the larva there. And of course, birds attack when they're the older adults. All right, so let's look into some of the conservation efforts. The United States Department of Agriculture proposed a new conservation effort in the Midwest and Southern Great Plains region by making $4 million available to help agricultural producers provide food and habitat for the monarch butterflies. So let's see. And, this really gives farmers the opportunity to care for these creatures by growing their native milkweed plants. And, of course, who better to help out the conservation efforts than the farmers themselves? They know what they're doing, and I have faith that this will help monarchs tremendously. Another conservation effort being made is the National Wildlife Foundation. They have created a program called the Schoolyard Habitats. And this is to educate students on the importance of restoring the monarch's habitats by creating pollinator gardens on school grounds. And of course, this is always important in any conservation plan. You know, the public needs to know what's going on before they can start to help. And that is just a picture of one of the programs there at an elementary school. And lastly, the Western Monarch Call to Action, led by EXERS, Society for Invertebrates, has established some rapid response conservation actions to the monarchs overwintering in the Southern California area. They are, of course, doing this by educating and calling on the public to help plant nectar species, the native milkweed again. Most importantly in this area is the eucalyptus tree that the monarchs favor in California. So the monarchs obviously need to eat and places to rest when they're overwintering, so this is extremely important for the conservation efforts to plant those eucalyptus trees. Now on to my management plan. After a lot of research, I've came up with what I believe would be a good solution to the conservation management to the monarch butterflies. I would start with, of course, continuing the conservation efforts already in place by managing the pollinator gardens, catching, releasing, tagging them, educating the public, all at the farm that I volunteer for. And this is a picture that I took. It's Gorman Heritage Farms, and this is where they have the milkweed fields for them to lay their eggs on and feed. Another thing I would do is contact government officials and use the tools I've learned in class to get legislation and funding towards the conservation of the monarch goal. I, of course, would start locally first and eventually work my way into other states to propose my ideas. Those ideas being to propose and implement a new tax on big corporations and herbicide and insecticide products to put percentage of their product revenue towards the conservation of monarchs. With the amount, of course, that of big corporation stores that we have, they should be taxed on a percentage of the produce they receive from these farmers and sell, for huge profits. The tax collected, of course, will then go towards the monarch conservation areas. And every amount of herbicide and insecticide should be taxed by the manufacturer and buyer of these products. My main goal, though, that I will be measuring is increasing the local numbers of monarch butterflies by planting the pollinator gardens and native milkweed fields. I plan on finding them, raising them, and releasing them back into the wild once they're matured. That way they don't have the exposure to all the predators at each stage of their life. I plan on starting small and catch, raising, tagging, releasing at least 50 monarchs back into the wild. I will do this for 1 year and measure my success by counting the number of monarchs that return to the area the following year. If the population increases, I will obviously take that as an success. And here is my works cited. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.